Let's do it.
This is the SEC Insider Hit. And it's presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue.
All right, I want to give you some numbers here. Good morning, welcome in. Man, this is insane. Almost as insane as the Blakey Blakester. But real quick, we'll have Steve Robertson on at 7:35. Want to say good morning, welcome in. Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone. Presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. SEC Insider Hit this morning, brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue, the official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds show. If you want to watch the show right now, you can hit YouTube and search Out of Bounds Sports. All right, here we go. Real quick. Gus Malzahn, $21 million. Buyout. Auburn boosters, whatever you want to say. Foundation will pay that. Kevin Sumlin will get $7.5 million not to coach at Arizona. That's right. Kevin Sumlin was actually still coaching in college football. But when you're coaching in Tucson, Arizona, nobody cares. Will Muschamp got $13 million. Lovie Smith will get $2 million not to coach. And I'm sorry, South Carolina agreed to pay Will Muschamp $15 million. TheAthletic.com, Stuart Mandel article. I missed those. I don't want to cheat Will Muschamp out of $2 million to be average and a New Balance guy.
They got Muschamped.
Woo, didn't they? Twice, 3 times, maybe even with the new hire. And then there was one, Derek Mason.
Yes.
He got a few $1 million to not coach.
I think his contract payout was like almost close to 5 with what he had left because they had just extended him.
Ooh.
Like a year and a half ago. The Sumlin $17 million, by the way, that's 7.5 from Arizona and 10 from A&M, which was still on. Which his buyout for A&M, and I don't know I'm not sure if he's a Sexton guy or not.
Mm-hmm.
But the buyout structure that he got at A&M was incredible because it did not include a clause for future compensation employment, just like Gus Malzahn's. So if Gus gets hired, Auburn still owes him full money.
Yeah.
A&M owed someone full money, even though he took the Arizona job like a week later.
Well, let me walk you through this. He gets $10 million and change before January 12th.
Yeah.
And then he gets another chunk on July 15th. They'll send him a check. Somebody will send him a check for $2.6 million all the way through, and he'll get that every July 15th until 2024.
Ooh, so tasty and ironic.
Yeah. Yeah. And if he gets another job, he doesn't owe Auburn anything.
Yeah, because his incredible contract clause doesn't include future employment. That's incredible. I mean, what a Rob job. And if you hire Kevin Steele, Bo, I want you to think about this. If you hire Kevin Steele, who you're going to have to pay what?
$3 million plus.
Okay, that's what I was going to say.
3.5.
I was going to say 4.
4, yeah.
Because you're Auburn, so
Sure.
you're not going to pay him You're not paying him Sam Pittman Beamer money.
Joe Moorhead got 2.8.
Yeah, which is super low in the SEC today.
Right.
So that means you're paying, give or take, about $26 million to get Kevin Steele in, because you're paying Gus about 21.5, and then you're going to turn around and pay Kevin $4 a year. So you're telling me that you made a $25 million decision to promote Gus's second in command?
Yeah, that it makes no sense. I mean, none of this makes sense, but I just wanted to walk our listeners through the crazy money that's being thrown at coaches to not coach. And
it's the best job in the world is to be a fired P5 coach.
Yeah, Kevin Sumlin made a ton of dough to be average.
He wasn't even average at Arizona.
No, he wasn't at Arizona. At A&M, he was average to pretty good, I guess. That may be his last Power 5 gig, though. But, if he invested or saved well, he should be fine.
Yeah, how could you hire a guy that could barely win 9 games at Arizona?
Well, Rich Rod did much better than that. And how is Rich Rod – I mean, Rich Rod would have been a better hire than Beamer at South Carolina. I mean, he'd be a better hire than Kevin Steele at Auburn.
When's Phil Longo getting a P5 job?
Or at least a G5 job. He'll have to go.
I mean, his
G5.
offense has been cooking.
Oh, Phil Longo's very talented. I mean, his offensive numbers are crazy good. He's a heck of a play caller. Um, you would think some G5 programs will give him a shot at some point. Live in the Bank Plus studio, the Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue, the official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. We welcome in Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports. His new book, Alpha Dogs. You can get signed copies right now, today, this week, at the All Lifestyle Shop in Ridgeland by Nuke. Steve, we were talking shoes earlier in the show, and we got into a New Balance Reebok discussion in the 80s. Any New Balance or Reeboks for Steve Robertson?
I wore New Balance maybe in middle school.
Okay.
But no, I don't know that I ever had any Reebok ever.
So not a Reebok guy. Yeah. Well,
no, I'm a straight Chuck Taylors, bro.
yeah, that's right. Last time I saw you had on when you were signing copies of your book at the All Lifestyle Shop, you were wearing Chuck Taylors, which I think that's a good look. That's a good look. All right, let's jump into recruiting. What is the latest on Ty Cooper out of Louisville, Mississippi?
Yeah, today's a big day for him. I mean, there's some discussion. He's not exactly sure if he's going to sign this week or wait and do it in February. I mean, he's been back and forth on that. Then over the weekend, there was a lot of discussion about how the family, specifically the mom, is just ready for the process to end, and is hopeful that he'll go ahead and do it. And I understand today they'll have a family meeting and then kind of make the final decision. And that's the thing. I know if you're on the Mississippi State side of this, you're awfully frustrated because you feel like if you've taken the lead here late, and if he's ready to go, you want to get him in the boat and have him sign tomorrow. And so it's going to be an eventful day today. It's a big day for all involved, not just for Ty Cooper, but every prospect is still making a decision. But there is a possibility that he prolongs the process and takes it into February.
Boy, that's a blow. That's a blow for Leach and Arnett if he doesn't sign tomorrow, don't you think?
Well, at the end of the day, it's if you get him, it doesn't matter when you get him. But I think if you look at it, if you want to get some juice and kind of get this thing finished up, yeah, you got to get that thing done. And, that's the thing. Another thing you look at too is if you're Mississippi State, say Deontay Anderson out of Fort Meade is ready to go. He goes, Coach, I'm ready to go. Does that push Ty Cooper out of the class? If you have a guy of comparable ability that's ready to sign in December, do you make the decision to go ahead and push ahead? That's always a possibility too. And so I think a lot of these guys that choose to push this thing to February could be playing with fire.
Interesting. All right. So something to keep an eye on. Ty Cooper out of Louisville, Mississippi. He's a defensive lineman, and it's down to MSU, Memphis, Tennessee. Ole Miss has also made a run. Will he sign tomorrow? Or does he kick it to February? Interesting. Steve Robertson, genespage.com. They'll keep you updated. They've kept you updated, but they'll keep you updated today, tomorrow, and throughout the whole deal, and the second signing day in February. MJ Daniels, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, another school.
Well, it's going to be a State or Ole Miss thing. I mean, as of last night, State was still kind of holding strong, but Ole Miss has not given up in any stretch of the imagination. I've read some things out there. There's been a lot of confidence from Mississippi State fans, but I can tell you behind the scenes, Ole Miss hadn't given up on him, and nor should you with this close to signing day. I mean, what's it going to hurt to keep pushing? And so that'll be something that we monitor a lot today. And I understand that MJ put out the tweet last week that I'm closed, I'm a dog, I'm finished. But, that doesn't stop any schools from recruiting them. And Ole Miss has still kind of intensified their efforts. And so that's something we're watching. And of all the kids that are committed to Mississippi State, that's probably the only one that I'm really sweating right now, just because of the fact there is so much going on behind the scenes that, makes you a little bit uncomfortable. But, it's a traditional State Ole Miss battle to the end for a good player. And so that's where we are. But, again, as of last night, State was still holding strong with him, but Ole Miss hadn't given up. So that's one that we may not really have a final answer until the morning.
Where is your confidence level with John Lewis, the defensive player from Germantown?
Yeah, I'd say probably 9 out of 10. I haven't heard a lot of nonsense about him in the last week to 10 days or so. I mean, since he committed, he's pretty much been true Maroon. He's been recruiting other kids, and I haven't heard anything that sounds concerning that should create any anxiety for Mississippi State fans. Where we've had the MJ Daniels thing where it's you hear this, you hear that. There hadn't been much of that with John Lewis, and so. Yeah, I think any surprises associated with him are probably of the negative variety for Mississippi State. I think everybody feels pretty confident that he's going to be a Bulldog tomorrow.
You mentioned Deontay Anderson. Is that right? Edge rusher?
Right, that's Fort Meade.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What is there an offer there? Is there enough room at Mississippi State? You mentioned Ty Cooper. Is there a tie depending on what he does? Where are they with Deontay Anderson?
Well, it's one of those situations where you want to take two more defensive ends, and there's really three, strong candidates at this point. Anderson's situation is a little different. He is going to go ahead and sign in the December signing period, but he's not going to announce until like January 2nd. And so the school will take his national letter of intent and just won't release him as an official signee until he makes a public declaration, because there's a family situation there where he wants to do it to honor somebody on January 2nd. And so he'll sign, but won't be released or announced as signing until that day comes. But I think Mississippi State's situation today is you've got Byron Turner out of New Orleans, St. Aug's, committed to Florida State. State hadn't given up on him. But today is probably decision day, because you can't run the risk of not getting either one of them. You can't say, well, okay, Byron Turner is going to stick to Florida State. Well, we have to know the day. We can't wait and be surprised tomorrow and then lose out on Anderson and Byron Turner and then have Ty Cooper wait and sign in February. So today is traveling day, let's say, on the defensive ends. State has to have some assurances today of how this thing is going to play out.
247 Sports, genespage.com, Steve Robertson on the Abita Amber guest line talking recruiting. Tomorrow is signing day. Has Mississippi State held off LSU for the linebacker Strong from JUCO?
Yeah, it appears so, and they've made it awfully interesting. But I think with the expected departure of Errol Thompson this year, and Strong is a comparable player as far as skill set goes. I don't know if he'll be anywhere as productive as Errol has been. Errol, one of the most productive linebackers in Mississippi State history, but because of the fact that he's got a chance to play inside. I think he sees an opportunity to play right away. He's got some friends coming in with him. LSU has done their best to make it absolutely interesting, and they have, and that's who really State's had to compete with late. But as of yesterday, it appeared that State was still hanging in there and holding the lead, and if we had to call it today, this would get in tomorrow, we expect him to be a Bulldog.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show. What is your prediction on C.J. Johnson, Steve?
Yeah, I'm pretty much assured that he's going to wait and sign in February. I know State has kind of pushed and suggested that he do it in December. But what's happening with CJ is, he commits to Navy back in June, and then his recruitment's kind of blown up here in the last 4 to 5 weeks, and he just didn't want to rush a decision. Now you've got Northwestern, and you've got State, you've got Ole Miss, you've got Penn State, Florida State, several other schools that are in the mix with him. And so while a lot of guys have had basically 2 years to work through this process, he's had a couple months, because his real offers didn't come into the end of his senior year. He was a late bloomer, and it's not because of his athleticism. It's basically because we didn't have the camp to the spring evaluation period. So he's a guy that benefited from a senior season. And so now he's kind of working through this and figuring out what's best for himself. So the word behind the scenes is he and the family want to take the full expanse of the process to make a decision. It's not anything that's detrimental about one school or another. It's just they never expected to be in this position, and they want to do their due diligence to ensure they're making the right decision. So
you're looking at several guys that could postpone, and MSU would rather get them in the boat tomorrow. And Will they move on some of these guys just because you don't – so many of these guys in January are over-recruited now because the real signing day is tomorrow? I mean, you and I grew up with the real signing day being February 3rd or whatever, Steve. And so how does that look as far as numbers, demand, offers tomorrow compared to first week in February?
Well, I think it boils down to this. It's, I don't think you ever just move on from a guy that you can still sign. I mean, 'cause again, it doesn't matter when you get him as long as you get him. But, yeah, there are some guys out there I think you look at and say, okay, well, there are going to be other players looking for a spot. So while you may get more offers, there's also going to be more players that have an opportunity to take your spot with your favorite school. It's not, the traffic picks up big time once we get through signing day, because all of a sudden there's other guys out there that were thinking, oh, well, I'm going to get this late offer from the school that I really want, and then they don't. Well, now all of a sudden they get a state offer. They get an Ole Miss offer. And so the prospects today probably need to understand there's going to be a lot more people that are under consideration for that spot they're almost taken for granted. And so, I think State's going to still have some good additions tomorrow. We do think that Antonio Harmon will push through tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and sign with Mississippi State. Simeon Price is another guy that, former South Carolina commitment is in the Panhandle of Florida. We do expect him to go ahead and sign with State.
Tell me about him. Tell me about Simeon Price from the Florida Panhandle. Wide receiver?
Yeah, well, he's a wide receiver and a running back body, and so he's going to actually play running back, and they'll flex him out some. And how Mississippi State wants to use a running back this year. And so this is a guy that has kind of been a wide receiver by trade, but is really kind of built like a running back. And so you take him as a slash athlete, and you play him running back. You can hand it to him, you can throw it to him. And, I think if this is kind of the future, I think, of the Mike Leach running back in this offense, because you want a more all-purpose back. You're not going to go out there and get those 4- and 5-star type, one-cut runners that are going to carry it 25 times a game. And I think running back recruiting is somewhat evolving, because you've got to have guys that are skilled at catching the football. And so this is a good get. And, again, this is a guy that was committed to South Carolina, and I guess by the most recent loose definition of flipmus, I guess we could call that a Mary Flipmus. But, because apparently if you're committed at any point to anybody, when you commit to your new school, it's a flip. But I like Simeon Price, and I think it's a good get, and I think that he's a guy that will be pretty dynamic in this offense.
Okay, Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show, 247 Sports, genespage.com. Signing day for all the schools tomorrow. A lot of ebb and flow. As Steve said, they all have to recruit till the fax goes through or whatever it is. That still cracks me up.
Nobody faxes.
I mean, we've been up here 5 years in the studio, and obviously we don't have a fax. But anyway, all right. So, MJ Daniels. Okay, we just received another text, Steve. MJ Daniels. If Mississippi State lands him over Ole Miss, will he play on defense, or will Leach put him at wide receiver?
No, he's definitely a defender. And I think really the question is, does he start out at corner and then grow into a safety, or does he immediately go to safety? And I think a lot of it depends on team need. And, really kind of adding some girth to that secondary is important, but also, too, getting guys like MJ a little more versatile that can play multiple spots in the secondary. And so now I definitely think he starts out on defense. I think he's good enough to play either side of the football, but I think his future long-term is probably at safety. But I can see him playing some at corner. But, yeah, I really like his game. And it's one of those things, too, where I think in many respects he benefits, from the fact that it's kind of a more shallow talent pool in the state of Mississippi this year. Because, in a typical year, there's probably 3 or 4 guys that can kind of play that role. He's really the only one right now. I mean, him and C.J. Johnson to a lesser extent. But, I think in many ways he's probably a bigger deal this year because of, the fact that we're a little bit thinner in state.
Is C.J. Johnson from French Camp?
Right.
Okay. All right, Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone. He joins us on the Abita Amber guest line. We're talking recruiting. Blake?
Yeah, one thing that we've talked about, Steve, with you and just on the show is the struggles on the offensive line. Is there anybody in this class that is – I mean, I know it is impossible to come in and play immediately in the SEC, but is there anybody who's going to help shore this offensive line up next year, or is this like a 3-year project and there's nobody in this class that's really set up to do anything like that?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. And so State currently has 4 offensive linemen committed for this class. A good chance they add another guy tomorrow. I'm hearing some promising things on Cannon Boone, who was committed to Virginia Tech out of Dickinson, Texas, but he is a spring grad. The rest of those guys, all 4 of the others, Gabe Cavazos, Albert Reese, Nick Jones, and then Carson Williams. All four of those guys will sign tomorrow and then enroll for classes at Mississippi State in January. Two of those guys from the high school ranks, Jones and Williams, junior college guys. And they're going to have 3 years to play. So that's a cool thing, too, because of the decision that was made this year with the NJCAA to allow us to be a 3-year of eligibility. So Nick Jones and Carson Williams, those guys are probably two deepers this year at the very least. I think both of those guys will come in and compete probably at guard. And then Gabe Cavazos is probably a guy that'll redshirt and then play behind, Charles Cross, as an understudy for a couple of years and then, kind of see how things go. But I think he's probably, in line for a redshirt. One could say the same thing, for Albert Reese, who is a massive human being. I mean, he's like 6'7.5" and 295 pounds, but he doesn't look that, doesn't have like any baby fat on him. But he's a guy that could benefit from a year or two in the weight room. And so you've got some guys in the developmental pipeline, and you've got a couple other guys that come in that you expect to be perhaps plug and play and really provide some competition to that room in January.
What about Justin Wally? Does he go out of state, or what is the latest on Jaden Wally's younger brother out of the Mississippi Gulf Coast?
He said last week, kind of like MJ did, and again, it's like nowadays anybody tweets out a graphic, we it's like it's the law. But Justin Wally put out last week that he was committed and 100% in with Minnesota, but he has continued to talk to Mississippi State. I know State is still hopeful to try to get him in the boat tomorrow. I'm not overly optimistic about that happening, but I know that he and Brad Cumbus are actually really close, and Jaden and Brad are really close, and so they've worked hard. I mean, despite the fact that he puts out that I'm committed. I mean, nobody stops with that.
Sure.
I mean, you put it out there and it makes the fans feel good, but there's not a college recruiter worth their salt that's going to stop just because a kid tweets out a graphic. I mean, that's not how the world works, And so
you tell me Tim Brewster doesn't stop on when a kid tweets out a graphic?
When kids put out no interviews, respect my decision, Brew is hands off. No, of course not. Brew. It's like Brew always used to say, he goes, I don't care that he's, quote, committed. That just tells me who I got to beat. And so.
Oh, man. All right, Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show. We got 1 minute, Steve. This football program needs a win. And so Missouri, I think, is a little more complete, but MSU is perfectly capable of winning this game. Walk me through your thoughts on this game this weekend and how bad they need a win.
Got to stop the run. I mean, it's as simple as that. And Auburn ran the football pretty well. I thought Tank Bigsby really gave State some trouble, last past Saturday. And with Roundtree and Beatty, I mean, they're very multiple. So they got to find a way to stop the run. But you're right. This team needs a win. This fan base needs a win.
And you feel like they'll be going to a bowl game, right?
No doubt. Birmingham.
Oh, you're predicting Birmingham?
I am.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Take care. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com, predicts the Birmingham Bowl for the MSU Bulldogs. They play Missouri. 2-point spread this weekend. Start Vegas. Ole Miss is a 1-point underdog, to LSU. So they're both basically pick-ems. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue. The official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. We're live in the Bank Plus studio, and Mike Detillier will join us at 8:30.